Hello and welcome to the Bourbon Master. We're trying a cinematic approach to this tasting tonight. So I'm your host, Chris Wilkie. We're recording this on an iPhone. It's got this nice little yellow box as I move around everywhere. Tonight we're going to be tasting an Old Hammer, which if I put in front of my face, it'll zoom in here. Cask Strength Pick from Indiana Liquor Group. I got this bottle from my wife. She stopped by the liquor store, Muncie Liquors on Wheeling in Muncie. And she picked this up. She was kind of persuaded by the person to try to grab a Hugh Hamer. And I don't dislike Hugh Hamer by any means, but I'm a tried and true Old Hammer fan. I love that it's local here in the Indy area. I tend to like some of the flavors I get from this stuff. So I'm very excited when she gets me a bottle of this. So she got me that and a bottle of Old Forester 100. So in tonight's tasting, we're going to be tasting this lovely bottle here. So if you don't know much about the Indiana Liquor Group, they pretty much own most liquor stores, East Central Indiana, from Marion to Richmond. They just bought Papa Joe's in the Richmond area. Just went to a tasting the other night and they were giving us some of the Papa Joe's barrel picks there. If you're a Papa Joe's fan, fantastic. I will tell you after trying some of them, I'm not a huge fan of some of the barrel picks. I think when you really get down to it, barrel picks are all about your taste and how they align with the people that are picking the barrel. So mine really align with Indiana Liquor Group, so I love tasting their stuff. Now, I also love Crown Liquors up in Indy. Whoever picks that stuff is right in my ballpark too. I think it's a very specific thing to realize is that you have to line up with that. So going to tastings and samples and trying some of the lower end picks, I mean, this is like 36 bucks. You could tell if you like a little bit of their flavor profile before you buy an $80 pick somewhere. So I poured myself a wonderful little pour here in my Glencairn. So let's talk through this tasting. So if you didn't know, I use a lovely bourbon wheel, and you may be able to see this if I hold it just right there. So bourbon wheel, this is from the Indiana Bourbon Club or Society. If you haven't checked them out, I played a fantasy football league with them this year. Some great guys. They do a lot of tastings up at Final Third in Cordsville. I think it's a heavy Fishers Northeast side base, but I think they're kind of spread throughout. So shout out to them. I still think they have these big tokens and spinners. On the back, it's a spinner that says, hey, you pay, I pay on these. So I bought this $20-some. You get into their list to get their picks first. 20-some bucks is worth that to me. So got it. But if I go through a tasting wheel here, it's got everything under the sun I'd like to taste. So let's go with this. I'm going to cheat and use my bourbon wheel as we go through this. Okay, so very boozy. If I didn't mention already, this is a 116 proof, so 58.1% alcohol. You get the alcohol burn right away. With some of the Cask Strength Old Hammers, I tend to find they have a very good marshmallow flair to them. S'moresy almost. It's not that you get a little bit of the chocolate and you get a little bit of that marshmallowy flavor. I get some caramel, get some vanilla, get some toffee. I get a little bit of nuttiness in there. I get some cinnamon. And then I also can sit back and go, I think there's some chocolate kind of buried there. And I get some of that almost, I won't say nutmeg, but something in that thing. I don't get a lot of leather. I don't get a lot of floral notes. In this, I get a little bit of cherry. I think that comes from the higher alcohol. But yeah. Tasted more of a new oak here instead of like a real heavy toasted. Reminds me a little bit of an Elijah toasted barrel that we've had. It's in that ballpark, but it's really heavy on the booze. So I think you get a little bit of that Bing cherry sitting back there. If you let it sit just a little longer, you pull a little coconut out of it too. Now, I told you I was going to use this. I lied. I mean, I was able just to rattle that off. If you go back and watch some of my first videos, some of those flavors I just pulled out of here were complete, would have never even thought about that. I think that using some of these tools and tasting a lot of things really train you. Do I think I'm a bourbon expert? No, I'll never ever claim that. I will say I'm a bourbon master because I write the blog. Doesn't mean I'm good at what I do, but it means the fact that I've at least studied some of this stuff. And I think I've come to have an affectionate love for some Old Hammer. My opinions are always going to be biased this direction. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. But at the same time, I think that if you're looking for a good cheap pour that's going to give you a little bit of variety in your life, and you like a little bit of that sweeter, more like you're drinking something that is roasty, toasty, a little bit of marshmallow toasty, I think this is going to be really good. As I found with most of the Hughes or the Old Hamers in that ballpark, they all kind of had the same flair, which would make sense. They're from the same mash bills. They're heavy on the corn. You're going to get a lot of that sweetness throughout. And they do a good job picking these things. So, if you haven't had it, if you want a sample, if I still have this bottle by the time you watch this video, send me it. I just got some Boston Rounds in. And one of the next videos I'm going to do is talking about how I did my first exchange online to get some bourbon from somebody. And I actually had some friends taste it. And it was a really cool experience. So I'm going to go into more detail with that. But if you want to try some of the stuff I have, please let me know. We can arrange that to be shipped. All I ask in exchange is, maybe you send me some. And we kind of do some videos back and forth, or we have some fun with it. So again, cheers. If Ron's out there, sorry the videos have been behind Ron. Been a little busy traveling. But I hope that you've enjoyed all of this. So I will see you guys all later. Cheers. Make sure to subscribe to The Bourbon Master.